There's probably a teacher or two that you still remember from school, someone who challenged you yet knew how to make learning fun and engaging. A good teacher can really make or break the school experience. A Lake George history teacher is on a mission to be that inspiring educator. That's today's Story of the Day.
Support for Story of the Day comes from Pearsall Wealth Management at UBS Wealth Management USA, subsidiary UBS AG, member FINRA SIPC, 1 Broad Street, Glens Falls.
Hi, I'm Amy Fireisel. It's Thursday, April 16th, and I'm in for David Summerstein. He'll be back on Monday. First up, North Country Congresswoman Elise Stefanik weighed in on the conflict in the Middle East and President Donald Trump's ongoing feud with the Pope during an appearance on CBS Mornings on Tuesday. Kara Chapman reports.
Pope Leo XIV has criticized the White House over the war in Iran. Stefanik, herself a Roman Catholic, said she didn't want to see the Pope weighing in on U.S. politics and national security.
I was disappointed to see the Pope politicizing and getting engaged in politics. The President of the United States is a political figure and is going to stand up for his policies.
CBS correspondent Norah O'Donnell said the Pope sharpened his language after Trump threatened to wipe out the entire Iranian civilization in a Truth Social post last week. The Pope said such threats were, quote, truly unacceptable. Stefanik defended the president's rhetoric.
It led to the ceasefire. It led to talks. And President Trump, we know, look, we're a decade into this, about his leadership style. It's not the traditional diplomatic leadership style that, frankly, has failed in the past. It is very effective. It brought the Iranians to the table.
The U.S. and Iran have so far failed to reach a deal to end the war, which Stefanik blamed on Iran being unwilling to give up nuclear weapons capability. Stefanik was on CBS to promote her new book, Poisoned Ivies, the inside account of the academic and moral rot at America's elite universities. It draws on Stefanik's experience questioning university presidents about anti-Semitism on their campuses amid student protests of the war in Gaza. On what's changed in higher education since the 2023 hearing that went viral, Stefanik pointed to the resignations of some of those presidents and claimed there's been a shift toward academic excellence over, quote, political indoctrination.
People are looking at schools that are focused on academic excellence and not this anti-Semitism and anti-Americanism that skyrocketed.
Stefanik is in the midst of her final year in Congress. Last December, she abruptly withdrew from the race for New York governor and announced she wouldn't seek re-election in New York's 21st congressional district. Stefanik reiterated that it was the right decision personally and professionally. Assemblyman Robert Smullen and Sticker Mule CEO Anthony Constantino are vying for the Republican nomination in the race to replace Stefanik. She has yet to endorse either candidate. Kara Chapman, North Country Public Radio.
Several environmental groups have formally requested that the Adirondack Park Agency start measuring and protecting remoteness in the Adirondacks. The New York Public News Network's Pat Bradley reports on what that means.
Adirondack Council spokesman John Sheehan says remoteness is basically the distance from the nearest road or snowmobile trail.
Both of those have impacts on wildlife and ecology, but they also have impact on how a human being reacts to their surroundings.
Adirondack Wilderness Advocates initiated the remote measurement proposal, which was also submitted by Adirondack Wild, the Adirondack Council, and the Rewilding Institute. Adirondack Wilderness Advocates board chair and co-founder Pete Nelson says data and objective information is needed to make the best decisions to protect the Adirondacks.
We want to see objective measures so that the state and stakeholders can make smarter decisions about the kinds of management actions that might affect remoteness.
Nelson says his wilderness group used GIS and within a couple hours created a map showing all the land that qualifies under a remoteness definition.
The distance from a road, 3 miles, is something that's been used in remoteness calculations at the federal level. Another one is road density per acreage. Both of those things have been used in science and data across the country.
Nelson notes that Adirondack Wilderness Advocates found, based on their GIS measurement, that less than 5% of Adirondack land is more than 3 miles from a road and could be considered remote.
We can use effective management policies to protect those remote pieces and even expand them, reroute roads or close them or move trails.
The environmental groups say their proposal is consistent with the Adirondack Park State Land Master Plan's definition of remoteness. Sheehan says they are trying to call attention to a responsibility the state has failed to act upon.
Part of what we're asking them to do is take a look at amendments to the state land master plan as they look at how they're managing the forest preserve in the future, to take this into account. And as they're deciding what to do to manage the most remote areas of the park, to try and preserve the qualities of those places, at least as they are now.
The Adirondack Park Agency has not yet responded to a request for comment. For the New York Public News Network, I'm Pat Bradley.
Teachers make the world go round. It can be a demanding profession, but it's also uniquely rewarding. In today's North Country at Work story, we hear from a Lake George teacher who's spent 2 decades building connections with his students. Anna Williams-Bergen has that story.
Lake George's Seth Harris has been teaching social studies in Latham, near Albany, for about 20 years. He says it's just flown by.
One thinks there's just teaching involved. There's really a lot more. It's about connections, forming connections with students and their families, letting them know that there are people who care about them, helping them find who they are.
Harris says that whether it's drawing or taking tests, teaching is about getting to know students and helping them make personal connections to the curriculum. That's part of why, in his American history class, Harris teaches local history as American history.
So, for example, when we teach the French and Indian War, you teach Fort William Henry, Fort George, Quebec, and you really see how important this area was.
He says there are many ways to connect students' lives to the subject they're studying.
Even when you teach abolition as part of the antebellum period leading up to the Civil War, you realize how important this area was with the Underground Railroad. Later on, when you look at the New Deal and you look at, hey, we had CCC camps right here.
Harris' passion for what he teaches is evident, but this isn't where he expected to end up. Harris grew up in Lake George, the son of a New York State Supreme Court justice. So as a college student, Harris was intent on becoming a lawyer. He soon realized that his true interest wasn't practicing the law, but helping others understand how important the law is. That's how he came to teaching.
So I went to see a friend of mine who was a principal at the time, and I said, I don't know. I'm thinking very seriously about this. This is what I want to do, but what do I do? So he says, why don't you come in and observe some teachers?
Harris spent a few days at the school, sitting in on classes and seeing how the sausage gets made.
I loved it, and I just loved the creativity. I loved the positive atmosphere, and I loved that students seemed to really like being there. And I said, that's what I want to do.
Harris says he still remembers his own 8th grade social studies teacher. A storyteller, such an engaging teacher that Harris woke up in the morning itching to get to school. Harris wants to be that teacher for his students, and that means keeping up your excitement through the daily grind.
From day to day, you don't always know how much of a difference you're making. It's exhausting. It can be draining, and there are days, you go home tired and just you have no more energy to do anything. But then you get to a certain point and you see a light bulb turn on with a student. All of a sudden, they're doing better. They're taking interest in what you're teaching. They're answering questions. They love a project that they do.
Harris says that sometimes that aha moment doesn't happen until years down the line.
They come back and you realize how much of a difference you've made. And they tell you, like, I didn't like public speaking before I took your class, and now I'm taking this class that involves only public speaking. Or they are going to law school because of the mock trial that we did.
Harris says there will always be kids who don't like school or struggle to see the value of what they're learning. But he says that's why schools need dynamic teachers who are passionate about what they do and excited to reach out to the students who need it.
You look at those students and you're thinking, wow, they really had a lot of promise then, and I'm glad that I was able to help give them some direction and something they wanted to do in their lives.
Harris says teaching isn't about fancy tricks or bells and whistles. It's about making the connections that get students excited about their world. For North Country Public Radio's North Country at Work project, I'm Anna Williams-Bergen in Lake George.
You can find more news all the time at ncpr.org. Music today came from Oscar Sarmiento in Potsdam and the Best Boys in Richmond, Vermont. I'm Amy Feiereisel, North Country Public Radio.